If you don't know about me, I'm not English. I'm French-Canadian. So I descend from Europeans, French Europeans, who moved to Canada in 1595 and early 1600s. And from my father, I descend from people who were called Rocheron. It's still my name, although I use Blake as my married name. But Rocheron, it means roche, stone, rond, circle. I descend from people who build stone circle. And my answer, I've only discovered that 4 years ago, and it explained many things in my life, actually, because what brought me here was Stonehenge. I always resonated to that, and I was offered I was given a grant to come to Europe to study arts. And when I was 23, and I said I wanted to come to England, to my mother's absolute disgust, because you know that the English people are traditionally the enemy, and in Canada we have long memories. So she was very upset, and she said, why don't you go to the land of your ancestors? I said, I don't know, but Stonehenge really attracts me, and I really want to go there. I came for 6 months, grant, and I'm still here, and that was 1970. So I was very attracted to Stonehenge, and Stonehenge still resonates with me very strongly, anything to do with stone, and also, of course, the crop circle, which are always, it seems, appearing near these monuments, almost as if they want to bring us back to that ancient knowledge that Robin is talking about, and that is so important for us. I'm not very, I don't find mathematics easy, and I have great difficulty understanding these things, but I know intuitively that it is very important, that we need to study that, we need to get that ancient knowledge. My take on ancient knowledge, or my connection with ancient knowledge, has more to do with traditions of, what should I say, esoteric tradition or symbolic meaning. I'm not so much in the measurement. I was useless at maths. I found it so boring. I just can't tell you. But anything to do with myth, anything to do with symbols of tradition, different traditions, speak to me very strongly. And of course, we don't understand every symbol. Crop circles is a symbol. I mean, the circle is the basis of all symbols, really. It's also the basis of all mathematics and measurement, isn't it? The circle? Not one of them. Well, okay, I'm not going to venture into these things because I don't know enough about it. Right, now I've just messed this up as well, which is pretty stupid. I must learn to press the right button. Must be this one. No, I've done it again. Blast. Can you do that again? Which one is it? This one. This one. Must be that one. Which one? Where am I supposed to play? I don't know what. Where am I supposed to press? I press different places. I get the same result.
Yeah, that's the right one.
There you are. Okay, so the basis of all symbols is the circle, because a symbol is the division of the circle. That I understand. It speaks to me. And I understand that when you put two circles together, you have the Vesica Piscis. Now the Vesica Piscis is the womb of the universe, is the female aspect. This is where everything has come from, you know. It is the passage from the unmanifest into the manifest. Comes into a womb and it appears. It is also the basis of geometry. Am I right? Good. So basically the symbols in crop circles are based on the circle, and it is showing the division of the circle. And I have seen that sometimes it's divided by 3 and by 4. We saw that one from Bert the other day. So there's 4 and 6. You know, you've got 6. Maltese cross here, you've got a square in a circle. Would that be squaring the circle, possibly? But anyway, there I see that it's divided into 4, and it has 6 Maltese cross. And then that's an example of a pentagon, and a pentagon, actually. Pentagram, rather, which is a circle that is, in that case, divided into 5. And here we have 6, examples of 6. And 7, And dividing a circle in 7 is not that easy. 8, these are just examples of many. Then we have many examples of the circles divided into 9, divided into, here you have 10 on the outside, 5 and 10, and 12, 30, is it 13? 12, isn't it? 12. That's 16, isn't it? 8, 16, and I've lost count anyway. And this, I have notes somewhere which I've written, but that was quite extraordinary because you have, as divided by 18, divided by 18. You've got 6 in the middle, and then you've got 3 times 6, yeah. I did count the number of circles, and I noted it down, and I can't find my notes, but the number here is remarkable. 36. 36? 36 4 times? That's
4 times is 144.
144, that's the number I wanted to know, and I did know that, but I don't have it in front of me. But 144 in many traditions is very important, isn't it? This one has, I think it's 227 or something. It is a very high number. And there is a story that didn't go down too well when it happened. We were absolutely ostracized because of this. Not our fault, and I'll tell you the story because I would like this to be known exactly what happened. We had our conference at the Deviser School, and on a Sunday morning we had invited Dr. Strachan, and he is a minister, and he had warned me not to put him on Sunday morning because he wanted to talk to us about symbolism and various different things. He didn't want to be kind of put in a slot where he felt that he had to be giving a mass or doing a mass. It was Sunday morning. He didn't want to feel put on the spot on a Sunday morning because of his religious connection and so on. And I said, that's all right, I'll put you on Saturday, you don't need to wait. And the person on Saturday couldn't come, and the only slot he could have was Sunday morning, and he was a bit put out. So he came to speak, and he said, I just cannot give you the lecture I prepared, which I spent several months to do. I can't give it to you because it's Sunday morning, and I don't feel that I have to do something religious on Sunday morning. You know, otherwise I feel awful. So I have a nice idea, he said. We'll go outside and we will sing. Now, there were a lot of us those days in the hall at that time. And so we had to go outside, and we thought we'd do one big circle with too many people. Then we tried 2 circles, too many people. And then finally we did 3 circles. And we were absolutely kind of like this, you know, because it wasn't very big space behind the college. And there was a lot of us, so we kind of go like that. We make that shape, actually. And there we are, we start singing hymns. Now, in the meantime, what happened was that we couldn't get the helicopter for that weekend, and we liked to have the helicopter landing there and taking people and seeing the latest crop circles, you see. So they were doing that while we were kind of starting to sing hymns, and it's been going on all day. So in the morning, the pilot was always doing, as they do when you do tours with us, they do the same trajectory. You know, they work out a trajectory to give you 7 or 8 or 10 circles, depending. And he had done his trajectory, and he'd already done the Saturday, so he knew, and he had done 2 in the morning, because we did that at about 11, I think. So he had already done 2 tours, and that was fine. And he drops the people, and we will sort of get into circles, and another lot start off. And when he goes to fly around, within that 20 minutes, this had arrived. And I was told by the people who were in the airplane that the pilot was so shocked that he banked the plane like this. And he said, what? He banked off like that. And everybody was going, what's going on? What's going on? Well, it wasn't here 20 minutes ago. Now, this pilot had arrived on the Friday evening, and he came from the north. And you know what it is when you organize a conference, we're busy, and we just wanted to tell him, you know, this is what you do. You work out a route. People want to see the maximum crop circle during the time span, which is about 20 minutes. And this is what you do. So he said, okay, all right. Well, now, first of all, he came on Friday night. He sort of came to the desk. And people who arrive not knowing the subject, but having a lot of prejudice, I know exactly what they're going to say. That's exactly what happened, you know. We're there at the table, and he comes in, and I just wanted to tell him, very nice to see you. It was lovely to have you. Can you do the route, please, and work out a route for tomorrow? But he wanted to tell us what he thought of crop circles. I have heard all about this. This is all man-made, you know. It's crap, it's rubbish, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, please, just work out the route. We'll talk later on Sunday evening. So we send him off, and he works his route. Now, he sees about 7 or 8 circles. And when he came back, he was a little bit more humble and less sure of his opinion. And as he was, and then the next day, of course, on Saturday, he starts his tour, and there were 2 or 3 more that he hadn't seen on the Friday. And things are beginning to kind of sink in, you know, to his mind. But on the Sunday morning, when that happened, he landed the helicopter, you know, he came back. And I have to tell you that when we were singing, at one point I just felt that at this point we had one voice. It just clicked. It was like a laser beam. We had one voice, you know, and it felt very powerful. So he sees this new thing, he lands, all the passengers run out very excitedly, come to us, and where are you? And the pilot, runs out of the helicopter, comes to our stand, and he said, I want to be a member. Now, the crop circle community never forgave us that. They never, ever forgave us that. They thought that we were crowing or something. I can only tell you, that's what happened. I'm not crowing. That's what happened. And it's not our fault. You know, we were just singing hymns, and we can't help it. So that was an amazing thing, absolutely amazing. Look at the number.
76.
How much?
76, 4 times 19.
Right. What's the total? What's the total?
Petals. And I think we were...
How many petals or total?
76.
3 times.
3 times.
Right, 76 3 times. Okay, and were you at the conference?
Yes.
You were?
It's really great, this ceremony.
Yes.
And I think from the persons, I think we were about 80, but I didn't count it.
There were more than 80 because...
From the one circle here, but I didn't count it.
Well, maybe in one circle, but there were more than 80 because we had to make 3 rows. And, you know, in those days we had 300 people, 300 or 400 people in the audience. And we had to make 3 circles, so we were not like a little number like that. It was a big number. And when I counted those, I thought it was more or less the number of us standing in the 3 rings. But there you go, again, I'm going to be criticized and slaughtered for that. But that, yes, there were over 200 people in the circle. It may be a total coincidence, but it made a very strong impression on us, I can tell you that. Very strong impression. So another line of symbols are the cubes. As far as I know, this is the first kind of cube that we had. And I didn't see the cubes when I saw that. I mean, it had to be pointed to me by Michael, actually, when he pointed that they are actually, it's a series of cubes. You know, that happened at Avebury during a solstice. There wasn't a solstice, it was a moon eclipse. And there were lots of people there, and we were there till about 10 o'clock, I think, but there's some people who spend, you know, great part of the night, and there were people working at the henge till 4 in the morning, and he said there was nothing. It's just, you can see that. It's just next to the avenue, you know, the hill, it's Waden Hill, actually, the flank. And it was very visible from Avebury, and anyway, it happened, and it was fantastic. That was terribly debunked in the press in London. And it so happens that I met the journalist who had written the story because I was taking a group of people, it was about a day old, I think, and she was there with the photographer, and they were taking pictures and everything. And she'd written an article which came out a few days later, so I didn't know she had written that. in the first place. So anyway, I show her the photograph, and she was absolutely amazed. What? Is that what it looks like? She said. Now, she was supposed to have organized that. And in her article, it said that she had organized that, and the people had done it, you know, the hoaxers were there, and that they had been hiding. They were frightened of being seen, so they had been hiding by the fence. And then when the coast was clear, they packed up their courage and they jumped a 6-bar fence. Have you ever seen a 6-bar fence? I don't think I've seen that. But the point is, in that field, there are no fences. There are no fences. It's completely open. So they don't hide to jump the fence. There's no fences. But when she saw it, she had never seen that thing before. So there you are. You see, we're dealing with very interesting situation. That was the first octagonal shape, open, makes an octagon. I think that's what it's called. Cube. Then we get into the form, you know, the 3D form of the square, the cube. I think that was the first cube, wasn't it? That was at near the Barge Inn. Made a very big impression. No, it wasn't near the Barge Inn. It was quite close to our house. It was in not far from where Michael lives in the valley there. I think it was almost in his direction anyway, in the valley, a place where we don't often have crop circles. But that was amazing. We could see it from our bedroom from Etchill-Hampton. Absolutely remarkable. It's also a Reiki sign. It's also the Antakarana. And it's used in Reiki in America. They use that for healing. And suddenly some people, a group of women, about four or five women turned up at my house. They sort of, somehow they found out about me. And they said they'd come from California and they wanted to go in there. So I took them to the crop circle. And they spent about 4 or 5 days. They actually stayed there 4 or 5 days. They ate in there. I don't know what else they did in there, but they were there for the entire period of their stay. They didn't see any other crop circles. And then when they came out, they took off and back to America, which I found extraordinary, you know, coming all this way. And particularly that summer, I think that's 99, we had loads of crop circles. I seem to remember we had about 60, 55 or 60, it was many. And then a few weeks later, we had this one in, where was it? Where was that one, I think? Where was that then? It was near the barge as well, wasn't it? Oh, the other one wasn't. This was behind the barge, that's right. And from the point of view, I don't know mathematics and geometry very well, but I see that from the point of view of ancient knowledge and symbology, that the circle represents the whole. It represents spirituality. It represents heaven. It's like the original egg. And then when you start to divide the circle, you create a geometric shape. Now you create a square. In fact, it's a cross, and you make a cross, and then you join the lines, and you get a square. The square represents the earth, because the square is limited. The circle represents the whole. It represents not the eternity, because there's no beginning and no end to a circle. It just can go on forever. Whereas the square has a beginning and an end. It has a form, and it's limited by the circle, so that represents the earth. And inside that square here, which is cubed, which is in third dimension, you have a circle. And the link between the outer circle, the infinite, and the finite, there is a link there. So in other words, there is eternity in matter, there is spirituality in matter. Square also represents material, and because it's limited, and the circle is illimited, so it's spirituality. So within matter, there is spirit. That's how I read it. But I tend to see symbols rather than complex mathematics and that kind of stuff. I was very moved by that. And then Bear Cloud, who was working with us at that time, he said that to him represented a sweat lodge. You know, you entered the sweat lodge here. But to me, it represented the fact that there is the link between the spiritual world and the material world. There's a passage. Then this wonderful cube. Cube is fantastic. And a few years ago we had a series of cube, which is again playing with so much to learn about these things, you know. Well, know that. We all know that, don't we? A cube. Now, another line of symbols that I like very much is again playing with the concept of the spiritual world and the square world. Now, the square world is limited. The square is limited. You know, in Canada, when we talk about English people, I'm talking about English Canadian. Don't worry. Not you guys. We say they have square heads. Not very nice. But they tell somehow, when I was there, somehow we felt that because we were descending from the French, we had more kind of, you know, more outward and more open, more interested in all sorts of things, whereas the other part of the country, they were rather square. The mentality was rather square, you know, they were quite limited. I don't have these feelings now, but that's how we saw it. And in French language, if someone is narrow-minded, we'll say he's got a square head. So we all have square heads actually in our civilization now. We're very limited. Robin was saying, you know, we need to educate ourselves. We need to see out. We need to learn the ancient language, the ancient concepts, because you look at the ancient, and they are so spiritual, you know. Spiritual means not religious, concerned with matters of spirit, concerned with consciousness, with understanding. In our world, we're driven by what's on the telly tonight, you know, that kind of stuff. We're very limited. We've lost that. We live in a square world. Materiality is square. Spirituality is circular. So one series of symbols in the crop circle that recurs, if you watch it carefully, is the division of the circle, but it's also the square in the circle. You see, we see quite a bit of that. And here, you see what they're doing? Squaring the circle. Well, I think the crop circles are telling us that rounding our square, you know, becoming more spiritual. That's what it means to me. Try to round your square. Because these lines, which are all absolutely straight, by the way, these lines are absolutely straight. Straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line, and they form a beautiful curve. Isn't it amazing? They're so clever. So here you have all straight lines that actually give you a circle inside. So to me the message is, why don't you round off your circles? Why don't you circularize your square? In other words, become more spiritual in your way of thinking, less materialistic, because square is materialistic. Same here, round up your square. Wait a minute. Hang on a minute. No, it's not in this one, but there is the previous one to this. This was the second crop circle that actually happened on exactly the same place. You can still see the tracing of the crop circle of the previous year. It's bang on to the previous year's crop circle, and in the previous one was also a square that was being rounded. And to me, and Rob Seaman, who is here today, when he did the geometry, and tell me if I'm wrong, Rob, he told me that he had never seen that shape in any books on geometry going back to the Greeks. Wasn't that right?
Yeah,
the corner was effectively a square that had been rounded in a certain way. You've never seen that geometric shape. So as far as we're concerned, there was a new geometric shape that had never been seen on the planet either by the Greek or he didn't see it. He checked in all the books on geometry and everything, and Rob's been doing all the crop circles, geometry of the crop circles. That is new geometry. It's never been on the planet. So that's very interesting. But again, this thing of try, and it looks to me very Celtic, very ancient, ancestral. So in the ancestors, our ancestors, before Christianity, our ancestors were as spiritual as we are materialistic. Now that is a huge difference, than this part of the spectrum and with that part of the spectrum. We have no idea what it was like to live then. Just like they would have no idea the way we live now. They could not comprehend. Just like the Kogi Indians or the tribes that are still functioning in our old system, they cannot comprehend our materialistic mentality. It is incomprehensible to them because it's so far removed from reality. So the crop circles to me are saying often, round off your edges, try to go back on the circle. And if you go back on the circle, it looks quite comfortable. It's like a cushion. It's comfy. So this is a square entirely made of circles. That to me is a cosmic joke. I was talking to Alan Brown about this at the time, and he said it's a joke. I said, I agree, it's a cosmic joke to do a square with entirely of circles when you're dealing with symbols. The meaning of the symbols, the circle is spirit, square is matter, and you've got matter, which is square, in spirit, And in the middle here, you have lotuses. These are the ancient symbol of the lotus. It's an Egyptian tradition. So this lotus is actually the understanding that you can elevate your consciousness and open to the sky, You start in the mud, in the water, it's all murky water, and you go up and you open to the sky. So it's an elevation, it's a transformation, it's a fruition, flowering of your consciousness. So they invite us to make our modern square world more rounded and more spiritual. And here again, you have the square on the circle. Now that came earlier, that was 1997, I think. And here we have the first intimation of a division, almost like a fractal. It goes down in scale, because you can see it's divided into 4. I can see it on my screen. I can't quite see it here, I'm too close. But I think you can distinguish 4 squares in here. And they go down in scale again. Now, when that appeared, at that time we were having our conference in Devizes, and we were more in that part of the world. That happened at West Kennet, just below West Kennet Long Barrow, opposite, near the barn, where we get lots of crop circles. And to actually go to this design was very tiring, because you had I'll show you. I mean, it did your head in. It absolutely did your head in. I tell you, I don't know anybody who could go there and who didn't come out with feeling like this. This is all so difficult. It just does my head in. You could see nothing. You couldn't see the fractal in this. You couldn't count it. It wasn't comfortable. You couldn't lie down. It's all tough. And it was the most extraordinary one I've ever seen. Now, when it arrived, and it was, we had kind of very primitive computers in those days that took a long time to download things. And I didn't know about it. And Dereka, who is here today, rang me and she said, "Have you seen the latest crop circle on the connector?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, if I were you, I'd have a look." So I said, "All right." So I put it on, and it's downloading like this. I'm looking, and as it's downloaded, I start to feel really cold. And John, I said, "John, I'm freezing." He puts a blanket on me. "Oh, I'm freezing." It put me in a state of shock. Actually, that's what it was. I was going into deep shock. And he kept putting blankets, and in the end, he brings me hot water bottles, and I'm going like that. I've never had a shock like this. I was absolutely, totally mind blown. It's mind blowing, It is absolutely extraordinary. So we would go and visit that, and it did your head in. I tell you, it really did your head in. If you haven't experienced it, everyone who went there was thinking, oh, I can't, yeah, bah. So a week later, we had that next to it. And I felt, well, our group felt, oh, this is great, you know. You go a bit in the kind of square bit, and then you go and rest in the heart. It's wonderful. You know. And we did our closing ceremony in that, and it was really lovely. We had a harpist who played the music, and it was great. And you had the mind of the divine, in a way. In fact, that's what this symbol represents. And it's an ancient symbol, which has been rendered slightly differently. Now we can see it's fractal, and fractal is, you know, goes down into all the scales. And the heart, which is important, because if you're always in here, I can tell you it gives you a headache and it desiccates you. You need this as well. So we had that as well. And we had a wonderful time there. And look at these guys. I took this picture, and the girl is completely wrapped up on the guy. You can see she's wrapped up on his legs. You know, they were, wonderful. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, Robin showed this one. This was at Woodbury Hill. And again, that's like a pine cone, isn't it? The thing is, when you went in it, that was another mind-blowing thing, completely mind-blowing. When you went into it, none of the lines were, in other words, all the shapes were staggered. So it's not as if you made a line, a straight line, and you'd get this design. It wasn't in line. It was only in line when you saw it from above. On the ground, it was about 3 inches staggered. Every half moon was 3 inches out of line from the one below or next to it. My son was with me. He's a sculptor. He was quite skeptical, but he's a sculptor. He understands about symmetry and understands about alignment. He's a wonderful artist. And he walked at it and he said, "My God, it's staggered. I can't believe this. How on earth would you do such a thing? You know, you could not do that physically." So it was one of the wonders of the crop circle, really. Wondrous thing. So that's another category that we get often. I pretend to understand what this means, but I know that mathematically it's very, you know, into quantum, into very complex and the concept of multidimensionality and so on. And we've had quite a few in that line of symbol. They are always totally fantastic. This one again is staggered at Savernake Forest, and it amused me when I saw that, because again, thinking symbolically, because this is what I spent many years in my life study symbols. I actually, you know, did quite a lot of many years studying ancient symbols through an ancient teaching, and that's what speaks to me. So here you have again. You've got spirit and you've got matter here, or heaven and earth. And earth is divided here. It's got 3, so it looks like almost like epochs. So it's got 9. 9 is a completion of a cycle. But the thing is, it's not really harmonious, is it? It's all staggered. We're coming out of a quite difficult time, it seems to me. You know, that this time is finished now. This cycle is coming to an end. We all know that. By December, this cycle is finished. Doesn't mean that the world will finish. It means the cycle is finished and we enter a different one. Well, I hope it's more harmonious, that it actually lines, you know, it's in line with each other. It was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Another line of symbols, I don't know quite what that means. It looked almost like a man on a horse, I thought, riding a horse or a camel. It's a fractal. It's a fractal based on a triangle. You know that a fractal is a repetition of the same shape down the different sizes. Okay, it goes from it's the repetition of a shape at all scales. So it goes down in scales and up in scale. And if you go down in scale, the further down you go, you will have the same shape as the total one, as the biggest one, if you see what I mean. It's simply a progression of shapes down the scales. That's how I understand it. Maybe there's more to it than that. Now, there is a little known aspect of crop circle which I think relate to sprites. And I had been to California when that arrived, or I was around about the time, either just after or I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but there was a connection with America. I'd been to California to give some lectures, and there the indigenous tribe have a little symbol they call Kokopelli. And it does resemble Kokopelli because Kokopelli plays the flute. And I thought that he played the flute, and he's slightly hunchback. And I was quite amazed. People, I think I'm the only one who took a picture. It was very badly received. I thought it was a new line of symbol, and it's fantastic. And I really valued it. It was very big. You can see the number of tram lines here. It was very big. And it was delightful. And that was the second one. Another little sprite, I thought. You know, and there was a third one, but the third one I didn't manage to photograph because it was mowed before I knew it was there. So, but at least there were being three in that category, which I find utterly charming. It does look like a little sprite. Well, this is a music scale, isn't it? It's a fractal and it goes down in scale, and I think it has a musical scale. Again, it's not really my knowledge. But what I see here is that the same shape goes down in scale because this here is half of that, and this is half of that, and this is half of that, and this is half of this, and so on down to infinity. And I think it's the basis of the scale, the musical scale, and so on. And it possibly, you know, the different levels of existence and so on, because the universe is a fractal actually, and you go down in scales. You start with the universe, and in the universe you've got the galaxies, and then you've got the solar system, and then you've got the planet, the sun, the sun, the solar system, and so on. It goes down, down, down in scale. I think that has to do with music. It is fantastic. It's one of my favorite. I was totally stunned when it came. It's absolutely amazing, the kind of knowledge. The doors they open, you know, crop circles open doors. You'd have to be quite, I mean, I was talking about this afternoon, you know, discussing that. How is it that, I was discussing that with someone who brought a group here today, and he's staying at a B&B, they're staying at a B&B, and when they mentioned the word crop circle to the B&B owners, they had nothing but, well, the usual stuff. And he couldn't understand that. You know, he comes from Sweden, and he said, how come they have that attitude here? How could they do that? Well, they never look at anything, for starters, you know. But it is like we're living in two different worlds. We are living in two different worlds. And what can I say? We see them everywhere. We relate to them. We try and understand what they're telling us. We're learning on every level. I mean, I've learned so much about so many things. We all have. And yet the locals who live here don't know anything about them. I was asked to give a lecture on in Manton 2 years ago. No, 3 or 4 years ago, actually. In Manton, just you know, at the entrance of Marlborough. It was a small village. So I said, yes, I'll come and give them a basic lecture, and what I call a physical lecture, a physical aspect, not the symbols. I can't show them that. They would think I'm completely crazy, but, you know, sort of basic stuff. And I was very amused that the only place they could find where we could have such a meeting, because there were quite a lot of people, about 30, I suppose, was a nursery school. Now, these people who came the youngest were about 60, you know, and they're sitting in these little chairs, and they've got pictures of kids' pictures, you know, on the wall. And I walk in there, I'm thinking, this is amazing. This is like, I couldn't believe it. And the first question I said, do you know about crop circle? Yes, we know about crop circle. Of course we know about crop circle. Have you ever seen one? No. One man said, where are they? I said, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. You get Silbury Hill, Westgate, Long Barrow. But Silbury Hill is a hill, isn't it? The Long Barrow is a tomb. Avebury, they don't know what, it's a village. So they don't have any sense of the sacred landscape or anything like that. So it was a different planet. They live on a different planet. So I said, they're everywhere. Where in particular? I said, we had 60 last year. Where? I said, you had one next to your village. It was a huge design. They hadn't seen it. People here don't see them. We see them. They don't. It's another dimension. They live in another dimension. They live in the square world. What's on the telly tonight? That kind of stuff. But I see crop circles as a teaching. So this wonderful yin-yang pattern, yin-yang, we've had quite a lot. Now, if you think about this, and I talked to several people in the field about this, particular geometer, that the yin-yang symbol, we had one example, which is the Chinese example. That's it. And with crop circle, many, many dozens, I reckon. How easy is it to invent a spiritual symbol? I can't. You know, I studied symbols for many years. I studied ancient knowledge. I can't invent a spiritual symbol. I can copy one. I can adjust one. I can change it a bit. But actually, fresh devise a new symbol is impossible unless you are at a very high level of understanding. And these are very high level of understanding. But it is a transmission of knowledge through symbols and geometry, which I'm not that au fait with. But symbols, it is a means of transmitting knowledge, which is what the crop circle use. So the yin-yang, we had one example for thousands of years, and I was speaking to Alan Brown about this, and you know that he did some research in that, and that's for many years. He had found how many? 40, 50? And there's many more now. You know, they're inventing symbols before our eyes. We're getting new symbols that have never been here on the planet. I mean, that is absolutely staggering. So here you can see you've got the yin here. You don't have a yang, but you have the yin. And it goes down in scale. It's a fractal. Here you have the yin and the yang. The yin is the dark and the yang is the light. The female, receptive, and the male, active. And you have a reversal here. So the two are linked together. But there are many examples. That's a beautiful one. I absolutely love that one. That you can see a yin-yang in here. The shape, anyway. The color is the same, but you have the shape of the yin-yang in here. And it's a serpent. Now, the serpent is life, isn't it? It's active. And anciently, serpent is a symbol of knowledge. And that's why the Christian church demonized the serpent. They want us to know that. Because the serpent represents in energy, knowledge, consciousness. It's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, and again, mathematics, they're sort of bringing back all the knowledge in all sorts of different ways, and I find that fascinating. I don't know if you know Nan Lu. Nan Lu is not here so much. He used to be very active in crop circle. He's a Chinese doctor of medicine, Chinese medicine. He's also a Tao master. He's also a Tai Chi master. And he said to me once that crop circle comes directly from the Tao. That's what he said, comes directly from the Tao. And he also told me that all ancient Chinese knowledge is found in the crop circles. Now, I can't see that because I'm not Chinese and I don't know their symbols, their knowledge. I can't see that. I can recognize what I know already. I can't recognize Chinese knowledge. Now, I had an interesting experience a few years ago. I don't know if Glenn is here, Glenn Broughton, but I was speaking at his conference, and we were right in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in Vermont, on a ski slope, in actual fact, in a ski chalet with a beautiful fireplace, all very cozy there, waiting for the conference to start, and was sitting quietly. And in comes a Chinese person. We all assume he was an American, you know, Chinese-American, American-Chinese, rather. And he sits down, and we're sort of a bit stunned. So he introduced himself, and he said, "I've just flown in from Shanghai." Wow, that's amazing. Shanghai! He said, I'm the equivalent of the Minister of the Environment in China. Well, you know, this is in the woods. in America, conference on crop circle. You know, and he said, I've thought a lot about this. He said, I've looked everywhere. I've looked at all the Chinese things and everything. The only thing I can see that can save us are the crop circles. He said, yeah, we're finished. That's what he said. I'm the Minister of Environment in China. We're finished. There's no hope. The only hope I get is from the crop circles. So silence. We're all sitting there. You know, what does he mean? This is amazing. And I spoke to him afterwards, and he said, he said that because, in actual fact, he didn't say that. I'm saying that. He was explaining that they could recognize the symbols more. They could recognize the symbols. They could see their knowledge in the crop circle symbols, and he was getting that from just looking at the connector, you know, seeing what was going on. So I sort of I was talking with him, and I'm saying, why do you say that it's our only hope? He said, well, I'm just reading them. And he was reading them easily because they have kept the symbolic way of writing. They don't have an alphabet. They write with symbols. And he showed me what the symbol for Peking was. And he said, you see, it's a square because it's got the walls around the city. Ah, that makes sense. And then he goes on and explains to me how Peking can be done in characters, Chinese characters. So they read symbols continuously in their language. You see, that's symbol-based. Whereas we don't do that. We've lost that. Our ancestors did that, I think. We've lost that. So because we have an alphabet, you know. And a lot of people have said to me when I give lectures, not you people, but, you know, people who know nothing about it, and I explain, and they put their head on, why don't they write it long-handed in the field? Why is it not in plain English? Because we don't understand symbols anymore. But a symbol has an infinity of possibilities of understanding, and the Chinese can grasp it much better than we do. And he said, the crop circle is the only thing that can save us. We're finished. That's what he said. So well, like that. Anyway, so the pie, when I saw this, I saw that from the ground pretty well when I first saw it. And I went on the hill, and I couldn't quite see it like that, of course. And I'm not mathematically very good. But I saw that as a portal. I saw that as a kind of door. But then, again, it was shown to us that it is actually, it represents pi, isn't it? Right. But when we walked into it, to walk into it, you had to come in like this and then follow the path. So you actually were, you know, going up, following the path, almost like a labyrinth. I saw it as a labyrinth. And you enter in a circle here. I had no idea that that had anything to do with pi. But of course, it has 3.1, you know, 3.1 and then 4 and so on and so forth, and you get the pi here, which is absolutely extraordinary. But it was represented almost and then going down to infinity, because the pi, you never get to the end of it. So here we were made to walk a labyrinth and understand the pi by walking it in a way, understand the concept. I think they're so clever, these things. That was. When I saw that, I saw it as it's a hoverfly, isn't it? Almost a butterfly? No, what is it? Dragonfly. It is a dragonfly. Now, a dragonfly is the symbol of accessing our inner consciousness, our subconscious. That's the symbol. Jung used that to exemplify that we access our inner world, inner consciousness. And it was totally extraordinary. The fine little lines here were invisible at ground level. I didn't see them, and I visited that when it was very fresh. In actual fact, my reaction when I went in there, I just fell on my knees. I fell on my knees. I thought I was seeing something divine. And this, to me, represented the earth. You know, the earth has a shield, and when the sun sends its flare and the shield protects the earth, now that shield lights up and is very similar to that shape in actual fact. It made me think of that. The bee below the white horse, the bee, another ancient symbol. The bird here, and then if you look carefully, you will see that there's a lion face there as well, the two eyes. If you sit on that side, you'll see a face of a lion. And the lion was the companion of the goddess. It's a goddess symbol. I don't know what the hummingbird is. It's not a hummingbird, is it? A hummingbird. I don't know what that represents, but it resembles a bit the one on Nazca Line. But I was amazed to see I don't know if you see it. Put your head like this, you will see the lion face very clearly. And it was very close to Tan Hill. Spider's Web, the first one, at Avebury. I think it was in 1996. It was absolutely beautiful, really lovely. Now the spider web for the indigenous people represents the universe. That's how they describe the universe, because the American Indian, they don't write with an alphabetical language, they do symbols, and that's when you get your knowledge. So often in the caves you have the spider's web, and it represents the universe, which they see as one whole. And it is one whole. And the idea is that wherever the spider is, whatever happens anywhere along that web, she will feel it. That's how she gets her prey. Now that represents the universe. The universe is one whole. And we're part of that whole. Whatever happens in that universe, the universe will feel it. And what's happening here is felt in other places, because we're one. We don't realize that. The crop circle have taught me, that we are, people know what's going on. Something at a higher level know what is happening on this planet. That when, at the beginning, when people realize that you say something in a crop circle, it's quite dangerous. You have to be careful what you say. And I remember in the 80s, someone saying, flying above the field, we've had enough of simple circles. If only we had a Celtic cross, and then the Celtic cross appears. That's really scary, because you realize that the universe has heard you. We emit vibration, and it's perceptible at a certain level, consciousness level. And therefore, the Earth is emitting distress calls at the moment, because we're in the process of killing her. We're quite advanced in that process. And she's sending off these waves of distress, and the universe is responding. And that's the symbol of that. The spider, in many indigenous culture, the spider represents the creatrix, the creator mother. She wove the universe. See? That's how they represent the goddess. Now, we represent the goddess like this. This is more European kind of symbols. I was very excited. I took this photograph, nearly fell off the plane when I saw it, actually, because we hadn't had any about the goddess, and people are saying, well, not anything about the goddess. Bang, the goddess turns up. It's very impressive. It's very, very impressive. You feel that. Actually, it's quite scary, because you feel you think so, you say something, and it manifests. You think, I'm not invisible, or everyone feels like that, not just me. So that's an example of a goddess symbol. This is also a goddess symbol. In ancient times, in Neolithic, not Neolithic, in Paleolithic time, and surely in Neolithic time they had that knowledge, but you see that on the graves. The owl was very close to was in fact connected to the symbol of the goddess, and it's the darker side. And often they had that in the tombs, so they had the presence, because the owl sees in the dark. They made a little drawing of an owl next to you, so that's a benevolent goddess that can see through the dark, so you are able to navigate that realm after your death. The flower of life has been well represented. I don't know if you know this design. It's quite difficult to find, because this didn't happen in Wiltshire. It happened at Kew Gardens. And didn't you know there was a crop circle inside Kew Gardens? Well, there was. It scared the living daylight out of them, actually. I don't know if Deirdre is here, but Deirdre went to see it. I didn't see it. I think it could be, no, it's not her photograph, but somebody photographed it. So at Kew Garden, they had kept a space wild, you know, with wildflowers and wild wheat. Not wild wheat, but old wheat. Old medieval wheat, which was taller than me. It was very tall, the wheat then. And they has kind of put a piece there, and they planted that weed, and they let the wildflowers grow quite freely because they didn't spray it with chemicals, and it's all organic, and the earth is very good there. And suddenly the seed of life appears. It freaked them out. And they immediately said, hoaxes, men with planks. How can you get hoaxes in Kew Garden? You know, the walls are about almost as high as the ceiling here. They've got barbed wires, they've got alarms, they've got lights, they've got patrolmen, and they've got all sorts of things. You can't get in, there's like Fort Knox, you know? And so how can men with planks go and do a flower of life at Kew Garden, a seed of life? It's completely stupid. So they must have heard it was completely stupid, because then they went on to, what was the other thing? It was hedgehogs. There must have been hedgehogs. Haven't you heard that one in the early days? Crop circle were made by hedgehogs. Hedgehogs in heat. Yeah. The male's going, he makes a flower of life. And people say, come on, flower of life. Hedgehogs, it's ridiculous. They settled for men with planks. That's what they settled on. And I rang them, and I was quite nervous, you know, ringing Kew Garden and say, I'm nervous, I'm shy on the phone anyway. So I rang Kew Garden and I said, we're studying crop circles, and what do you want? Is it possible you do some experiments on the seeds? Because they've got the laboratories there. And they said, no, it's all man-made. Poof, the phone down. So we weren't able to get seeds from there, and I wasn't able to see it either, but Deirdre saw it. She may not be in here, but she saw it. She said it was amazing. It created a lot of interest amongst ordinary people. And then we've had several examples here, actually, in the fields. We know what it means, the seed of life. Now, the tree of life, we've had a few examples, which are very interesting. So here you have the tree of life, and you see the roots in the earth. It's divided into two, so you have humanity, male and female. Now, as far as I know, the ones I was taught when I was at school is the Catholic version, is there one trunk, male. The female is completely gone. Now, the indigenous have the male and the female, much more balanced. And here you have lots of fruit and well-rooted and so on. If you turn it upside down, it changes completely. And I saw that when I photographed it. I was very shocked to see that suddenly it becomes almost like a man like that. And he's got his feet in many worlds. You can see his head even here. There's an indication of a head. But you also have a mushroom. And the mushroom has often come, I mean, doesn't it look like a man like that? The feet in many worlds, and then the mushroom. Now, we've had 2 or 3 mushroom crop circles, and people say, mushroom must be man-made. Actually, if we understand that without mushroom, there's no life on this planet. You all know that. Because the mushroom is the link between the minerals and the vegetal kingdoms. And if we destroy our mushroom, the plants can't feed, because they're the one who bring the minerals into the earth. Now, you may be interested to know, because we like to go into fields here, which are commercial fields, that the chemicals that they put on the plants to grow wheat and everything else that they do here, if you don't grow organically, you put tons of chemicals, are actually killing the mycelium. Did you know that? The mycelium is on the way out in a big way across the world. We're destroying the fertility of the earth. Great, isn't it? So that taught me that. Mushrooms, we had many examples. I know I've got 5 minutes. Tree of life, many trees of life. That's another type of tree of life. At least I saw it like that. I think I'm the only one who photographed it, because people thought, rubbish. Well, to me, it looks like the ovum coming down into the womb. That's how I saw it. That's another tree of life. Ancient symbol. This is indigenous. This is actually Australian. And you have the way they represent the earth is, it's got 7 or 9 levels of 9, is it 7? I don't have time to count it. 7 or 9 dimensions, 7 dimensions, surrounded by the serpent. Serpent is energy. Here we have the Ouroboros. We have many of that serpent. This is look like a bit like a turtle. That's an Ouroboros, isn't it? Now, in 2 of these, you have, I don't know if you can see, but you have the number 26. And here you have 8. So you had 2 numbers, 26 is a cycle, is a full cycle, 26,000 years, full cycle. Ouroboros is, the Ouroboros represents passing of time. It eats himself. It starts by the tail and he eats himself. And finally, there's nothing left, and he regurgitates himself, and another cycle comes. That's how the ancient represented the passing of time. Mayan knowledge. Now, this completely freaked the pilot when I flew over it. He just banged the airplane. He couldn't believe it. That was amazing. Our introduction to Mayan knowledge. Again, Mayan knowledge, same. This was very interesting. It was marvelous. To me, that was the center of the galaxy, the central sun. And that's the central sun is the basis of Mayan calendar. You know that, don't you? They align themselves with the central sun, and they measure all the waves of energy coming from the central sun is the basis of their knowledge, and particularly the passing of time. And it had appeared like this. Maybe you don't know this one. I don't think many people photographed it, but that was below the White Horse at Pusey. And you had that, which is the same. There's a central sun of the galaxy, and next to it, the chakra system. And interestingly, to access the heart, you had to go either here or here. To access this from here, you had to go through the heart. Cycles, now that's like un pain, une queue de pain. What is pain? Peacock tail. Again, that's to do with passing of time and with eras. Same here. That was just, you put two together, it gives you what? A symbol of infinity, a butterfly. You have the 8 here, the sign, you know. You start here, you go down. So based on 9. 9 is a completion of a cycle. Now that one, that Crooked Sole, which is fantastic, and is the DNA. We have 2 DNAs. Did you know that? You didn't learn that at school? Nor did I. I learned it from a crop circle. We have 2 DNA. One DNA is from our father and mother. The other DNA is the mitochondrial DNA, and that comes solely through the female line, and it starts from the first water, the water, the primordial water of the planet Earth. It can go back right to there. So in us, we have the memories right back to the waters of the beginning. You can see the DNA here, but it's a mitochondrial DNA. It lives in the mitochondria of the cells, and it's passed down from the female line. I saw that as almost like a Buddha. Some people said it was like a ginger root, but actually this shows a transition between I haven't got time to explain, but it's chemistry. Chemistry is very important. I'm just going to show you the pictures now. Now, messages from the stars. When I went, the first day to arrive, I had the bad idea of going and lying down in one of these humble little circles, and I had to get out after 5 minutes because I thought my eardrum was going to be broken and pierced. I heard a silement like this coming into my ear. I had to get out. I couldn't take it, and I'm quite used to crop circles, so that was quite interesting. Amazing, amazing thing. And finally, this we all know. We all know that one, huh? The face and... anybody here who doesn't know this? I doubt it. But the message was wonderful. And to me, I'll just give you that in a nutshell. I'm not... well, let's go back here. First of all, the location, This is watching the stars all the time. And when we went, we didn't know where to get in to access this field, so we thought we'd go and ask information there, and the men were armed. They were soldiers, armed people, armed guards. Well, that really kind of makes you feel nervous, where you came out and say, oh, we got lost, actually. We got back in the car. And when I photographed this, I could see that there was a little path around the village. I could access it from the back. So we went there and we walked in the path. And it was quite a long walk. And that's very symbolic. I often find that with crop circle. You have to go through a little path in the forest. just like the ancient legends, you know, you have to have your sword and cut the thing and so on, and you're going and you can't see, it's dark, and suddenly you get into the lights. It's very much like a fairy tale. And we're walking in there, and two guys from the crop circle community join up with us. There's three of us, Derica, Deirdre, and I. And you have two people from Wiltshire who are suddenly tagged along with us. And anyway, we're walking quite fast, and we get to the edge of the field, and it's so open, and we could see these guys up there, and the guards with their guns, and there was a farmer with his tractor in the field, and we were paralyzed with fear. And Deirdre and they were there, oh my God, we're a bit too visible. The wheat was only down to our, very, very bad quality, it was only to our feet, we couldn't hide in it, so it felt like really in the open. And I said, look, just think invisible. And we went, invisible, invisible, invisible. And we walked straight in, we had the map, we had the photograph. And I said, another bad idea, let's go and lie on the third eye. Okay, we go on the third eye. We lie on the third eye, and I felt pinned down as if I was on a kind of torture bed in medieval time. That's the image that came into my mind. Oh, we were like this. It was very fresh. It took me days to recover. I'm not joking. It's true. I just felt, you know, what is it they sent? I don't know where it got lodged in my mind, but I certainly felt a lot of emotion and the understanding, actually, of this idea that we're all part of one big family in the universe, and that the universe is one. It's got many galaxies, and in our galaxy it's got many, many worlds, but it's all part of the same thing. It's all one big web, you know, like a big web. And that we are part of that, and we're an integral part of that. But in order to access it, in order for the doors to open, we have to become more universal in our way of thinking, because we're very parochial. You know, not only we only know what's on the planet, but we only know what's in our country, or even in our village, or even just in our house. We don't know anything. We're very, very cut off. We're cut off from the universe. And the impression I had lying on that third eye for a couple of hours, which nearly killed us. It took me days, I tell you. I was in the sea. We went to the seaside. I'm just swimming in the sea, trying to recover. I've got to recover from this. It drained us completely. It was a fantastic experience. The impression I had was that we are being given the knowledge, that a universal knowledge. We've never had the universal knowledge. When we go to school, we're given a knowledge of opinion, mostly. So we're given a universal knowledge. We can access it through symbols, through geometry, through all sorts of things, but in actual fact, it tells us universal truth. And once we learn this knowledge and we begin to live it, the universe will open for us. That's what it's for. Thank you very much for coming. If you don't know about me, I'm not English. I'm French-Canadian. So I descend from Europeans, French Europeans, who moved to Canada in 1595 and early 1600s. And from my father, I descend from people who were called Rocherons. It's still my name, although I use Blake as my married name. But Rocherons, it means roche, stone, rond, circle. I descend from people who build stone circle. And my answer, I've only discovered that 4 years ago, and it explained many things in my life, actually, because what brought me here was Stonehenge. I always resonated to that, and I was offered I was given a grant to come to Europe to study arts when I was 23, and I said I wanted to come to England, to my mother's absolute disgust, because you know that the English people are traditionally the enemy, and in Canada we have long memories. So she was very upset, and she said, why 12, isn't it? 12? That's 16, isn't it? 8? 16? Oh, no, I've lost count anyway. And this, I have notes somewhere which I've written, but that was quite extraordinary, because you have, as divided by 18, divided by 18. You've got 6 in the middle, and then you've got 3 times 6, yeah. I did count the number of circles, and I noted it down, and I can't find my notes, but the number here is remarkable. 36. 36? 36 4 times? That's 144, that's the number I wanted to know, and I did know that, but I don't have it in front of me. But 144 in many traditions is very important, isn't it? This one has, I think it's 227 or something. It is a very high number. And there is a story that didn't go down too well when it happened. We were absolutely ostracized because of this. Not our fault. Wife, don't you go to the land of your ancestors? I said, I don't know, but Stonehenge really attracts me, and I really want to go there. I came for 6 months, grant, and I'm still here, and that was 1970. So I was very attracted to Stonehenge, and Stonehenge still resonates with me very strongly, anything to do with stone, and also, of course, the crop circle, which are always, it seems, appearing near these monuments, almost as if they want to bring us back to that ancient knowledge that Robin is talking about, and that is so important for us. I'm not very, I don't find mathematics easy, and I have great difficulty understanding these things, but I know intuitively that it is very important, that we need to study that, we need to get that ancient knowledge. My take on ancient knowledge, or my connection with ancient knowledge, has more to do with traditions of, what should I say, esoteric tradition or symbolic meaning. I'm not so much in the measurement. I was useless at maths. I found it so boring. I just can't tell you. But anything to do with myth, anything to do with symbols of tradition, different traditions, speak to me very strong to a womb, and it appears. It is also the basis of geometry. Am I right? Good. So basically, the symbols in crop circles are based on a circle, and it is showing the division of the circle. And I have seen that sometimes it's divided by 3. And by 4, we saw that one from Bert the other day. So there's 4 and 6. You know, you've got 6 Maltese cross here. You've got a square in a circle. Would that be squaring the circle, possibly? But anyway, there I see that it's divided into 4, and it has 6 Maltese cross. And then that's an example of a pentagon, and a pentagon, actually. Pentagram, rather, which is a circle that is, in that case, divided into 5. And here we have 6, examples of 6 and 7. And dividing a circle in 7 is not that easy. 8, these are just examples of many. Then we have many examples of the circles divided into 9. Divided into, here you have 10 on the outside. 5 and 10, and 12, 30, is it 13? And of course, we don't understand every symbol. Crop circles is a symbol. I mean, the circle is the basis of all symbols, really. It's also the basis of all mathematics and measurement, isn't it? The circle? Not one of them. Well, okay, I'm not going to venture into these things because I don't know enough about it. Right, now I've just messed this up as well, which is pretty stupid. I must learn to press the right button. Must be this one. No, I've done it again. Blast. Can you do that again? I've just, which one is it? This one. This one. Must be that one. Ah, which one? Where am I supposed to play? This, I don't know what. Where am I supposed to press? I press different places. I get the same result.
Yeah, that's the right one.
There you are. Okay, so the basis of all symbols is the circle, because a symbol is the division of the circle. That I understand. It speaks to me. And I understand that when you put two circles together, you have the Vesica Piscis. Now, the Vesica Piscis is the womb of the universe, is the female aspect. This is where everything has come from, you know. It is the passage from the unmanifest into the manifest. It comes